Fight fans, welcome to the PBC podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Bouhairie and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome everyone to the PBC podcast. I'm Kenneth Bouhairie.
And I'm Michael Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
Thank you all for tuning in this week for another fun episode. Lots of boxing to discuss as both David Benavidez and Kyrone Davis will be joining us. Of course, Benavidez and Davis will throw down in a super middleweight battle Saturday night at Footprint Center in Phoenix, live on PBC on Showtime. Looking forward to talking to them about their fight and looking forward to talking to Mike about breaking the fight down. Plus, we're going to recap last Saturday's unbelievable PBC Showtime pay-per-view. Canelo Álvarez, of course, successfully defending his title and overcoming a great performance from Caleb Plant. Also, all the undercard action, we'll take a look at that. And speaking of Canelo, in this week's toe-to-toe section, we're going to list our 5 opponents we'd like to see Canelo face next. So with that said, let's jump right into the PBC fight of the week. This Saturday night, it's going down in Arizona as undefeated two-time super middleweight champion David Benavidez returns to his hometown of Phoenix to take on Kyrone Davis in a 12-round battle at Footprint Center, live on PBC on Showtime. Action starts at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and we start here with the essentials.
Okay, here we go once again. Benavidez 24-0, 21 knockouts. Davis 16-2-1 with 6 knockouts. Obviously, Benavidez is 5-0 in his last 5 with 4 KOs. Davis is 3-1-1 with 1 KO. Last fight for Benavidez was Ronald Ellis. He stopped Ellis in 11 rounds on this past March 13th. Davis's last fight was against Martez McGregor. He won a unanimous decision on September 5th. Of this year. Benavidez 88% knockout ratio, probably one of the best in the sport. Davis 32%. They both have fought 108 rounds, which is a coincidence. Benavidez 24 years old, only 24. He'll be 25 next month. Davis is 27. Benavidez followed a similar path to Canelo. He turned pro at 16. He went to Mexico to do it in 2013. Davis, 2014, turned pro. They both fight from an orthodox stance. Benavidez is over 6 feet, 6.5 feet. Davis 5'10". Benavidez has that long reach, 74.5 inches, 73 for Davis. Benavidez is from Phoenix, Arizona, and Davis is from Wilmington, Delaware. He might be the greatest fighter ever from Delaware. I don't know. I have to do the research on that.
We definitely got to do the research on that. Right. Now, Davis obviously is taking this fight on 2 weeks notice, a little over 2 weeks notice. Is it tougher to be the late replacement in Davis or to be Benavidez and have to face a last minute substitute?
I think that depends on who's fighting. In this case, I think it's tougher on Davis because he'd have to be at the absolute top of his game to have a chance against Benavidez. And I don't know whether 2 weeks is enough to get there. Benavidez would rather have had more time to prepare for a different style, but he's fought guys like this before. It's not going to be too difficult for him to adjust, I don't think.
Yeah, it sounds to me like both guys are up for the moment. Give us your take on Kyrone Davis.
Good fighter. I went back and watched some of his fight with Anthony Durrell, and he really impressed me. Yeah. He has skills, good feet. He's really quick. I like the way he threw a lot of combinations in that fight, and he's not afraid to mix it up at times. He doesn't have a lot of power, but he does have everything else. He does everything else pretty well. I think he proved that in the Durrell fight, which ended in a draw.
Yeah, good stamina, really athletic, good speed, good boxer, well schooled, a lot of good traits that I think could make things interesting. What challenges does Davis present for Benavidez?
Well, the things I mentioned, he was a good amateur, which means he has that foundation. He can box. He's a good athlete, as you mentioned. He fights with confidence. Benavidez had better be able to break him down with his power. Otherwise, he could have problems with this guy. He's no pushover, again, as he proved against Durrell.
Yeah, and he also throws a lot of punches just as Benavidez does. And with that said, how do you see the matchup of styles playing out?
I think Davis is going to try to use his strengths. He'll box. He'll use his feet to stay out of trouble as much as he can. I don't think he'll run, though. He didn't run against Durrell. He'll pick his spots to throw combinations, and some of his punches are going to land against Benavidez. Benavidez is going to do what he does, jab, 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 and follow the jab relentlessly with his power shots in an attempt to wear down and then eventually stop Davis if that happens. The question will be, can Davis do enough to keep Benavidez off of him?
Right. And of course, folks will wonder, is he just, fighting to the final bell, or is he fighting to win? I think Davis obviously will be fighting to win. He's going to be a tough guy to stop either way. Is there added pressure for Benavidez, given what transpired last week and talk that he may face Canelo next?
I suppose there could be some, but I don't think that will have much of an impact on him. I think number one, I think he's really excited about fighting on the same card as his brother in front of the hometown fans, which is a motivating factor for him. And I think he's ready to give a good performance. He doesn't strike me as a guy who's going to let his guard down against anyone.
Yeah, I don't think so at this stage. Speaking of Canelo, do you have any thoughts on how Benavidez would match up against him?
Well, I think Benavidez would match up very well against Canelo. I think he matches up better than anybody else at 168 pounds. We're going to get into this a little bit later in toe-to-toe, but just the short version is that Benavidez has one thing that Plant didn't have, and that's power. He's got crazy power, and I think that would be a big factor against Canelo. I think that's a really interesting fight.
Yeah, could be. Of course, he's got to get past Davis first. What's your prediction?
I think Benavidez is going to break him down. It's going to look a little bit like Alvarez and Plant. You have to have a certain amount of power to dissuade a guy like Benavidez. I don't think Davis has it. I see Benavidez walking Davis down, probably taking some shots along the way, as I said, but not enough to really slow him down too much. And Benavidez's power shots, including many to the body, he goes to the body a lot, are going to take a toll on Davis. I think by around round 7 or 8, you're going to see Davis slow down. And I think he's going to get stopped shortly after that. I'm going to say KO 9. Interesting.
I tend to agree with you in terms of how the fight is going to play out with Davis boxing and David Benavidez stalking. Although, David Benavidez is a pretty good boxer, and he's got a high volume attack, and I think that he's going to force Kyrone Davis to stand a little bit and trade. But Davis is a tough out. I think he fights valiantly, hears the final bell, but ultimately loses a unanimous decision to David Benavidez. Real quick update on our prediction league. Mike is now 1 game behind me, trying to summon up this late season rally. But I got a knockout blow coming one of these weeks that'll put him away for good. Now, other matchups on the card, obviously, David Benavidez's older brother, Jose Benavidez, will return against Francisco Emmanuel Torres. And then, of course, Showtime will be airing the Canelo versus Plant replay. Something to look forward to. Now, our first guest is someone we were just talking about, the super middleweight contender who's having a great 2021 thus far, and will look to make it even better with a huge upset Saturday night on Showtime Championship Boxing. Kyrone Shut It Down Davis. Kyrone, how has camp been for Saturday night?
Things have been going well. Yeah.
Not much else to say but that, right?
Yeah.
Well, I got to ask you, what was your first initial reaction when you received the call to take this fight?
Great opportunity. Another chance for me to showcase my skills.
Very good. You're fighting David Benavidez on 2 weeks' notice. Were you already in camp when you agreed to this bout? What were you doing at the time that you got the fight?
I was training. I was sparring. I was in Colorado. I was sparring with Terrence Crawford.
Oh, okay.
Oh. What was that like?
I mean, great. I mean, he's top pound fighter. Great experience. Getting in there with somebody like that. And you always learning. So I'm always trying to get great sparring and being in camps where I'm getting top tier work.
How about weight? So you get this call. How much did you weigh when you got the call? Is that an issue at all, getting down to 68?
Boxers don't tell their weight.
Yeah, okay.
But I'll be 168. I'll be 168 when it matters.
Say less.
That's all that counts, right?
Right. Now, what are your thoughts on Benavidez as a fighter?
I think he's talented. I think that he's a good fighter. He has a lot of skills, and I think he's hungry.
How do you feel you match up against him?
I feel like I'm going to win. I wouldn't have took the fight if I didn't think I could win.
Right.
I think that I have things in my game that can offset some things in his game.
So obviously a victory on Saturday would be a big boost in your career. Do you think of it that way, or do you just approach it as another fight?
I'm having fun. I'm doing what I love to do. I'm like really blessed to be able to just like this is what I wanted to do since I've been like 8 years old. So like I'm in a position where a lot of guys never get to, and that's the top level of boxing, fighting on Showtime main event. I was just the main event on Fox earlier this year. I was main event televised on Fox Sports 1 a few months ago. So like I'm really blessed to be in the situation that I'm getting, the opportunities that I'm getting, and I'm just taking it in stride, and just going to do my best to get the victory, and that's all you can really ask for. Like, is to do your best and to give account of yourself and just do what you love to do. And that's what I'm doing. I'm very confident.
I like that attitude. So last Saturday we watched Canelo Álvarez stop Caleb Plant to become the undisputed super middleweight champion. Do you have any thoughts on the fight?
It was a good fight. I think that Canelo showed why he's the best, and I think that Caleb Plant gave a good count of himself, and he fought hard, but it wasn't enough that night for him. Canelo was just a better man that night. So I think it was a good fight. It was a great show. I love to see like all the fans in the stands again, and that the excitement and that it draw to the sport. So it was a good night of boxing.
Did the fight play out as you expected it to?
I kind of seen it going that way, but you know, it's boxing, anything can happen. So I kind of like, when I watch boxing, I kind of try to like take my viewpoints out of it and just enjoy the fight, because you know, you get kind of caught up like in your mind what you think is supposed to happen, and it kind of takes away from just the fun of watching the sport. I think that I just try to enjoy it, but the fight kind of in my mind it kind of looked like that, the way, like, not like the result, but like the way that they were in front of each other and what the things they were trying to do to each other.
Is there, obviously you've heard the talk about Canelo fighting perhaps David Benavidez next. Is there any added extra motivation knowing that a victory over David could put you in line for a shot at Canelo?
The goal is to be champion and be the best. I don't care about what they talking about, what they got going on. I'm fighting David Benavidez, not Canelo. So I have my shot at him. I'm not really worried about nobody else but David Benavidez. And that's just how it goes. I can't go thinking about any other thing, what I'm going to do afterwards. But the goal is always to be world champion. So that's something I want to get to.
Got it. You had a tough battle winning a decision over Martez McGregor in September. You've had a little bit of time to reflect on that. Can you share your thoughts on what happened in that fight?
I think I was outboxing him easy and he started getting dirty.
So this will be your third fight of 2021, the most you've had since 2015. Does that level of activity improve your performances, do you think?
I think so. I didn't even know that. That was a stat you gave me that I didn't even know about myself. But I mean, I like the activity. I like that I'm fighting. I'm glad that I'm being active. So I mean, it's a good thing. I think that it's going to work out well.
Kyrone, you sort of alluded to this earlier, but this has been a big year for you, seemingly more so than any other in your pro career. Have you been doing anything differently outside the ring?
Having fun. I've been having a good time, man. I've been enjoying everything. and just being positive and putting good energy out in the world, and it's coming back to me. So, you know, I don't know, like, the answer that you want me to, like, how to answer, but I just been having a good time. This is what I let it do. So, I'm grateful for the opportunities. I think I'm having a better year than COVID.
Well, it looks like the universe is responding well to you. On that note, last question. Give us your prediction for Saturday night. What happens against David Benavidez?
I think it's going to be a good fight. And I think I'm going to come out the winner. I mean, I don't really know exactly how it's going to play out. Whatever he does, I'm going to come ready for it, and I'm going to have my hand raised in hand.
Sounds like it's going to be a great fight. We can't wait for it. Kyrone, thank you so much for taking the time out to join us. All the best to you on Saturday night. Looking forward to having you back on again soon.
I appreciate you.
The unbeaten David Benavidez.
Oh, Benavidez!
People didn't believe in what I could do. I'm the youngest two-time world champion in super middleweight history.
I'm taking over now. I'm running the show now. But now I came to change the game, and I'll show you how.
People want to see great fights and fireworks, and that's what I give.
I'm taking over now.
All right, last Saturday, you know what we saw, the undisputed super middleweight showdown, WBA, WBC, and WBO 168-pound champion Canelo Álvarez taking on the undefeated IBF champion Caleb Sweet Hands Plant, and we got a damn good fight that went viral, fight that obviously did well. And in the end, Canelo Álvarez was just simply too much for Caleb Plant. 11th round stoppage. Canelo dropped him twice in that round to become the first ever undisputed 168-pound champion in this four-belt era. Mike, first, what were your thoughts on the fight?
I think it went pretty much as we both expected it to. Well, I mean, the result, we didn't expect the same result because we predicted different guys, but I think we thought the fight would sort of play out this way. Plant gave Álvarez, all kinds of problems with his speed and elusiveness for a while, but Álvarez eventually closed the distance, broke him down, and won by the knockout that you mentioned. I found it interesting to watch, but it was predictable. Plant acquitted himself well, though. I thought he did better than Callum Smith and Billy Joe Saunders, the other title holders Álvarez beat over the past year. It was a competitive fight until it wasn't.
Yeah, it was a very good fight. I thought Plant did extremely well. Did a lot of things that I think gave Canelo a lot of different looks and things that we hadn't seen, problems that we hadn't seen Canelo have in quite a bit of time. But ultimately, Canelo's pressure, his ring IQ, and his power were just too much. Why do you believe Plant fell short?
I think it's Plant's overriding liability was his lack of punching power. You have to be able to keep Álvarez honest with your power shots, or he's just going to walk you down with impunity. It's going to happen eventually. That's one reason Gennady Golovkin, for example, gave Álvarez so much trouble in their two fights. Álvarez got caught with a lot of hard punches that made it difficult for him to execute his game plan. Also, I think Plant's lack of experience at that level probably didn't help. That was a tough assignment for him on more than one level, which really makes me think that was a good performance by him based on everything that he was up against.
Yeah, certainly I think experience did play a key role. And I thought Plant did land some shots on Canelo that got Canelo's attention, particularly one to the body. However, what Canelo can take a good shot, and what Canelo throws in return is just, heat-seeking missiles. Could you sense that Plant was slowing down as the rounds progressed?
I thought he still looked pretty good. Like into the 9th round, I thought he still looked pretty good. Then it became obvious to me that he was starting to lose steam. I remember thinking at one moment, I don't know whether he's going to hear the final bell. I thought he was for a long time, but then all of a sudden I'm like, I don't know now. In other words, he was ripe for a knockout at that point. And when Canelo has that kind of opportunity, he's generally not going to squander it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, you kind of set it up until the after 9 rounds. I was like, wow, man, Caleb Plant is doing the damn thing. But then 10th round, I believe it was the 10th round, Canelo landed some really, really hard shots, and I was like, oh boy, water's getting pretty deep now. And sure enough, a round later, he finished the job. What was your scorecard at the time of the stoppage?
Well, I had it 98-92, which is 8 rounds to 2. That doesn't mean I didn't think it was a competitive fight. It was. I just thought that Alvarez did a little more than Plant, particularly from the middle rounds on. The fight to me felt like a 97-93 or 98-92 after 10 rounds, if that makes sense. I just thought Alvarez landed the bigger, more eye-catching punches pretty consistently. I did want to clarify. Plant did land some power shots, but just not nearly enough to get too much done. Yeah.
Yeah, to slow Canelo down. I typically don't score fights upon first viewing, but I thought it was a very, very close fight. I think Jake Donovan had a fight, even after 10 rounds, and I could definitely see that. I think a lot's been made about Plant not really doing a lot, but I didn't see Canelo landing too clean either. I think once he started landing clean, that was sort of the beginning of the end for Caleb Plant. But I thought a lot of Plant's subtle work, the pull counters, it was incredible what he was doing, and I was really surprised. I was having fast flashbacks of Mayweather. They were really subtle and short, sharp punches that Canelo had to adjust to. But, in the end, it didn't matter. Does Caleb Plant's stock rise after this fight?
I think so. He gave Alvarez a tough time for 10-plus rounds. I mean, who does that? He did what he said he would do. He proved that he belonged in the ring, or he did what he said afterward that he had done. He proved that he belonged in the ring with one of the best fighters of his generation. That says a lot about Plant. On top of that, he'll be a better fiter after that experience. Yeah. I mean, that's a fight that you learn from. That's how you grow as a fighter. So, he lost the fight. It's disappointing, but I think he's going to be better for it going forward.
Yeah, I was like, man, he's going to be a tough out for anybody at 168, point blank period. And I think you'd have to make him the favorite over almost everybody at 168. Really, what does becoming undisputed champion mean for Canelo?
Okay, so I could go on and on and on. We could have an hour conversation about this, but I'll keep it short. I think you have to look at it two ways. One, what he did was remarkable, particularly because he got it done inside a year. I think he did all of it in 11 months. There's 3 victories. There are reasons that only 6 men have been undisputed champions in the 4-belt era. It's extremely difficult to do that because, both because of the challenges in the ring and the politics involved and just arranging the fights. The fights you need to arrange to get it done is really hard. We old schoolers dream of having one champion in each division again. This is as close as we're going to get to that. Now, that doesn't mean that we should ignore the fighters Alvarez beat to become undisputed. He beat Callum Smith, Billy Joe Sanders, and Caleb Plant. They're all good fighters and legitimate opponents for anyone, but not as threatening, in my opinion, as, say, David Benavidez, Jamal Charlo, or the top light heavyweights. So I personally would rather Alvarez have focused less on belts and more on who he's fighting. That's not meant to diminish his accomplishment, which is laudable to say the least. I have more respect for him than ever. I just think we need to keep it in perspective.
Yeah, I hear you. Who would you like to see Caleb Plant face next?
I see Plant fighting a top 10 guy. He proved he could hang with the best. He doesn't need to take a big step backward for his next fight. I don't know whether I'd put him in with like a Daniel Jacobs or an Anthony Durrell immediately, but pretty much anybody else. I don't know whether the fight could be made, but a matchup between Plant and like Callum Smith crossed my mind. That would be interesting. Somebody at that level. I think a top 10, top 5 guy for Plant. I don't see why not.
Yeah, I agree with you. Love to see any of those fights. I like the Durrell fight. I think that'd be really intriguing. Nice matchup of styles. Now, in the co-feature, Anthony Durrell, 2-time super middleweight champion, return against Marcos Hernandez. We kind of pointed to this one as what should have been a fun fight, and it was, up until Durrell landed the uppercut of all uppercuts in the 4th round to knock Hernandez out, single shot KO. Mike, what did you think of the dog's performance?
I find it interesting that Durrell has brought up the R word, retirement, and then he did that. That just doesn't happen very often. That was a spectacular knockout. I knew that Durrell had punching power, but I didn't expect him to take out Hernandez with one shot like that. Yeah, Durrell had a lot of respect going into that fight because of everything he's overcome and his accomplishments. But a knockout like that lifts you to a new level in terms of how you're perceived, even at this stage of the game. If there was any doubt that he's a viable candidate to fight anyone at 168, there's no doubt now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't talk about retirement right now. Would love to see him, in against any of those top guys. But he says it's Canelo or retirement. Do you agree with him?
Well, it's kind of hard to get into his head, obviously. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that statement from him. I get it. He wants only the very biggest fights, and that's the biggest one. I don't see him walking away. If he's not the next guy, I don't see him walking away, especially after that performance.
Yeah.
It'd actually be a great way to go out, to be honest. But I don't see him walking away at that. If he doesn't get that fight, I think he'll fight somebody else, and hopefully, from his perspective, hopefully get Canelo. Not the next fight, but the one after that.
Yeah, it's clear that he has so much more to give still. Who would you like to see him fight next, Canelo aside?
He's in a good but tough position. He's 37. Just as you just said, he only wants to fight for titles at this point, which means Canelo. And I don't see Canelo fighting him next. I guess it's possible, but I don't see it happening. He might just have to be patient and see how things play out. Maybe he targets, maybe he targets Jacobs, or as you said, Caleb Plant, or one of the British guys to maintain his momentum. And he's got a lot of momentum all of a sudden. We'll just have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, for sure. I'm in agreement with you there. Also, in the on the undercard, we saw the return of former 122-pound champion, the undefeated Rey Vargas, now campaigning at 126 pounds against Leonardo Baez, and one-sided decision for Vargas. Mike, what'd you make of his performance?
I thought Vargas looked really good, especially given his long layoff and the fact he was fighting as a full-fledged featherweight for the first time. That was really his first fight as a 126-pounder. I had actually forgotten how good this guy is because he'd been away for so long.
Yeah.
He's tall and long for the division, and even for that division, and knows how to use those advantages. And he has some power. He kept Baez at a distance that was just perfect for him and just picked the guy apart. I know Baez isn't like a world beater or anything like that, but he's a solid fighter, and Vargas just toyed with him.
Yeah, he did. Toyed is the right word. He made it look easy. And what's even more impressive is that he hasn't fought. He hadn't fought in like 2 years. So, to put in that kind of performance, he just simply didn't miss a beat. Can't wait to see him against, some of the other top 126 pounders. Hopefully a fight with Gary Russell is on the table. Is that what you're thinking in terms of who you'd like to see him face next?
Yep, you just said it. He said it. He said he wants to challenge Russell. He's called him out, the long-reigning WBC title holder. Why not him? Vargas is the top contender. I would pick Russell to win that fight. I'm not sure I'd pick anybody to beat Gary Russell Jr., to be honest. But I would give Vargas a chance in that fight for the reasons that I stated above. He's a tall, smart, powerful guy. That could be a difficult style matchup for Russell. It'd definitely be a fascinating matchup. If not Russell, it has to be another top guy.
Yeah, I agree with you. And as I said, I love the Russell match. So I hope we do see that in 2022. Now, in the pay-per-view TV opener, we saw the return of Elvis Rodriguez against Juan Pablo Romero. And oh, man, you talk about bouncing back from your first career defeat. I mean, Rodriguez put on a show, knocking Romero out in the 5th round. Mike, what were your thoughts on Rodriguez's performance?
I thought it was a really good performance. Romero is a fierce guy. He came to fight, and he had some success in the first few rounds. Rodriguez just kept his poise, met fire with fire, and then just took over in round 4. Those lefts he threw to end the fight were huge. He had reason to celebrate afterward. He was coming off that upset loss to Kenneth Sims. He needed a big performance, and he delivered one.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very, very impressed with him. He's a big guy. I mean, I could see him at welterweight in another year or two, for sure, if he continues to win. I like the Freddie Roach connection there, too. Who would you like to see Rodriguez face next?
Well, I think that that was a really important win for him. I think he more or less erased the setback that he had against Kenneth Sims. So I think he's sort of back where he was, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. He still hasn't had that many professional fights. He's still technically, I guess, a prospect. So I would just bring him along slowly. Maybe fight a top 15 guy, something like that at this point. But I don't think that a title shot is that far in his future. I think he's that good.
Yeah, he certainly has the skills. I think he showed that the talent is there, the dedication is there now. He had mentioned that he had him in focus, leading up to to his loss to Sims. I think we saw all the skills that made him a top prospect, and I think they should continue to move him as such and just incrementally take steps until he's ready, whether it's at 140 or at 147 for a big fight. Speaking of big fights, let's bring in our next guest. He is the undefeated two-time WBC World Super Middleweight Champion. Saturday night, he makes his anticipated return to the ring against Kyrone Davis, beginning at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, live on Showtime pay-per-view. That's at Footprint Center in his hometown of Phoenix, Arizona. David Benavidez. David, fight time is near. How have you been happy about how things have gone in camp?
Yeah, man, I've been really satisfied with the way my camp has gone. I've been working for a long time. I've basically been working for like almost 4 months. You know, since I got COVID, that camp was basically done already. And that camp alone was, I think it was about 11 weeks, so almost 3 months. And then I caught COVID, but I mean, it was severe, but I feel like I recovered quite fast. I was out for 3 weeks, and then after the third week, I started training again. So I've trained a long time for this camp, and I've worked really hard. And now, I feel like weight is good. Everything is really good, and I'm just excited to go in there and perform, man. And in front of the first, this is the first fight I've had with crowds in 2 years since I fought Anthony Durrell. So I'm very hyped, man. It's in my home city, and I'm just excited to perform.
Now, was it difficult for you to pivot from Uzcategui to Kyrone Davis?
Not really, bro. I feel like, sometimes this type of stuff happens, and you have to be ready for it. And the way I'm treating this is, the way I'll treat with anything, the game plan remains the same for everybody. I don't think there's going to be a drastic game plan like that. Kyrone Davis is a boxer puncher, but he doesn't really use the ring that much, So, and in the gym, I was sparring, a lot of different guys. So, I would spar 3 guys, in one sparring session. So just having that on its own, you kind of have to learn to adapt to different styles of boxers, in one sparring session. So, I mean, his style is nothing out of the ordinary. I've seen his style time and time again. So, I just need to watch him for a couple more days, see what he does good, see what he does bad, and set a game plan up for him.
So it sounds like you really didn't have to make any significant changes for this fight.
No, not really. My style, I mean, you guys know my style really well. I love to throw jabs, I love to throw combinations, and I love to go to the body. I feel like it's worked against everybody, and it's a very successful, or it's a very good way to fight. Because I don't see any way you could go wrong with starting with jabs, going with body shots. I mean, going with combinations, going down to the body. You just have to know exactly when to do it. So I mean, it works for everybody. So I'm sure it's going to work for Kyrone Davis too. Very good. So you kind of hinted at this by talking about the first live crowd in 2 years, but you were really looking forward to fighting Uzcategui, and that fell out. Is there any problem getting up for fighting Kyrone Davis? Yeah, that's the thing too. I was really disappointed in that because I knew this was going to be a hard fighter. It was going to be a hard fight and a hard-hitting fighter because I've sparred him before, but I've got the best of him. But I feel like that's why he went that way, because he knows firsthand what I did to him in sparring. So that's why he had to go about to, take the EPOs. But I mean, it's not like it's hard to, just because I get changed the fighter, it's hard to get up and get motivated. I mean, the work was already done. Basically, the opponent got replaced 2 weeks ago. So it's not like, it was at the beginning of the camp or anything like that. But, still sometimes when you get these replacements, your replacements sometimes are harder than the primary fighters. So I got to be extremely ready, and I got to give him the respect of being a boxer because, this is a big opportunity for him, and he knows what's at stake. And if he's taking the fight, that means he's prepared because he knows I don't come to play. So, hats off to him and his team, and I'm gonna give him the respect he deserves, and I'm gonna train accordingly I'm gonna be ready for everything he has on Saturday.
Last thing on Uzcategui, you've had some pretty strong words about what he allegedly did. Can you tell us how you feel about what happened?
It's crazy that he would go to that extent to do that because we had been drug tested a lot for this camp. We had been tested like 4 times. And when they caught him was 2 weeks ago, and he wasn't really ready. He thought the drug testing was going to be over or something, and it's crazy that he didn't just really take any steroid. He took the EPO. I think like the pinnacle of steroids, the biggest. I mean, like the most effective steroids there is. So
yeah, the king of steroids.
Definitely meant he was scared, or he only knew that was the only opportunity he had to beat me. But honestly, I feel like I would have beat him on steroids anyways. You know what I mean? And I don't think it really would have mattered. I was extremely ready for this fight, and I was training for the best Uzcategui possible. And I mean, if they wouldn't have caught him on the steroids, I think I would still beat him. So I mean, it is what it is, man. He took him for reasons because he was scared. I don't think I'd ever take steroids to get ready for another man. But I mean, I can't say that about everybody else.
Now, back to Kyrone Davis, you mentioned that he's a boxer puncher. In terms of styles, how do you guys match up?
I feel like I'm the superior puncher. I'm obviously I got more experience. I've been champion before. So I've been in this situation before. I think with me, I have very effective jab, very effective combinations, and my body shots, are really superior too. So I mean, he doesn't really have punching power like that, and his head movement is not that good either. His defense is all right. So I feel like I'm the overall better fighter. But we're going to give him the respect he deserves, and we're going to see what he has the first couple rounds, study him. And then if I feel like there's nothing there, then I'm definitely in the press and try to give the fans a knockout.
One thing that hasn't changed is that you're still fighting in front of your hometown fans. Not only that, your brother also is on the card. How excited are you about that?
I'm really excited. The last time me and my brother fought together was in the same place here, was 6 years ago. He was on it's when he fought Model Middle Fights Jr. And it was the Footprint Center was known as the U.S. Airways Center. I'm very excited just to have him back. Just to see him motivated again. I feel like we train better when we're in the same camp and, we're preparing for the same fight. So I'm happy, man. I'm just really happy to see all my family, my friends there. And, this is going to be my son's, first fight attending boxing, and it's mine. So I'm excited about that too. And just to be in front of all the people of Phoenix, Arizona, man, this is definitely a dream come true. I never thought at 24 years old I'd be headlining a show here at the Suns Stadium, or at the Suns Arena. So I'm very excited.
David, I'm going to guess that you watched the Canelo Álvarez-Caleb Plant fight. What did you think, and did anything surprise you in that fight?
No, I mean, the fight went exactly how I thought it was going to happen. I thought Canelo was going to stop him with the body shot. I think Caleb Plant's elusiveness and movement, it was throwing Canelo off a little bit, but I feel like that's what Canelo expected too. But that's the thing too, man. Caleb Plant had no power to keep Canelo off of him. I feel like for a person to beat Canelo, you have to either earn his respect or have your own power and stand your own ground to keep Canelo off of you. And Canelo didn't. He was just waiting for that one spot where Caleb Plant stopped moving or his defense was a little bit weaker, like how it was, and he made it count.
Right. Did you learn anything about Canelo? You said it went as you expected. Did you learn anything about Canelo in that fight?
Yeah. I don't know if you guys seen, but every time Caleb Plant, when he started to put his combinations together, obviously when you throw a combination, you're not always going to land the first two, but the last three always landed, so I think that's something I'll take away from that too. Combination punching, Canelo, he's definitely not, he's not Mayweather, so if you throw some combinations at him, you'll definitely catch him. The jabs too, the jab was working very effectively. It's just that I would have liked to have seen Caleb Plant work the body a little bit more, but Caleb Plant is not a body puncher. I've seen some openings in the body, so I mean, we're definitely taking notes and we're definitely studying, and we're putting it all into the game plan for later in the future.
What makes Canelo so effective?
His relentlessness, his power. I think just his experience. He knows exactly how to work every round, and I think that's his biggest factor to his experience, and probably that he's in his prime of his career right now.
Now, you're obviously a prime candidate to face him if you win Saturday, possibly in his next fight. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm just excited, man. I know this opportunity is going to come soon, so I'm just excited to to go in there and make a statement for this fight, and then after, I'm just excited to go back into training again. It's probably these next couple months are probably gonna be the hardest I've have to train in my whole life, and I think I'm gonna take like 2 weeks, 3 weeks off, and then just go back into the gym, even when I don't have a training camp yet. But I just have to work hard and be ready for whenever the opportunity comes. And I'm excited because I know what I could do. I know that I'm talented. I know I got a lot of power, and I know I can hurt anybody at any given time. So I just, I'm excited for this opportunity. It's something I've been asking for, and I know it's going to happen soon.
Is there any extra pressure knowing that this opportunity could come soon? And you're also fighting a week after Canelo. I mean, do you want to make a statement because of that?
I don't feel like there's any pressure. There's no pressure at all. This is what I love to do. There's no pressure going out there and getting a knockout because this is exactly what I do. Even if Canelo didn't fight, I love to go in there and, dish out as much punishment as possible. I have 24 fights, 23 knockouts. I think my KO percentage ratio is about 89%. So this is just something I love to do. This is the way I love to fight, and I'm just gonna go in there and give the fans what they love to see.
Maybe this is kind of a big question, but what could you do against Canelo that Plant couldn't?
Well, I mean, there's two different fighters right there. Canelo, me and Caleb Plant. First of all, I feel like I have a better jab. I have more power. I think he has a little bit of speed over me, but I feel like I'm more effective in my game plan the way I do. But we have to go in there and see, man. I could tell you all day what I could do, but until I get in the ring and try to do it, that really won't mean nothing. But I feel like the facts are the facts. I'm a bigger puncher. I'm a bigger guy. Even Caleb Plant made Canelo look small, and I'm bigger than Plant. I have a longer reach than Plant. I'm a harder puncher. I got better body shots, and my jab is way stronger. So we're just gonna have to wait and see, man. Like I said, I just got to get ready, be prepared, and wait till the opportunity comes.
Now, let's say the Canelo fight doesn't happen next. Are there other prospective opponents that you have your eye on?
Yeah, I mean, if the fight doesn't happen next, I mean, I don't know, man. Whatever they give me I've been calling out big fights. I've been wanting these big fighters. I've been wanting to fight Berlanga. I've been wanting to fight Charlo. I've been wanting to fight everybody. But a lot of people, they don't want to fight. I feel like for them, they think it's too much risk and very little reward. So honestly, whoever they put me to fight, my job at the end of the day is being a fighter and fight whoever. I don't care who I fight. They just got to give me a name and a training camp, and I'll be ready for whoever comes my way.
Would you consider a Plant if that were to come around?
Yeah, definitely. I still want to fight Plant, even though he has a loss. I mean, it doesn't really mean nothing to me. I still need to get my hands on him.
Very good. Looking back really quick, we were just curious. So far in your young career, what's been the toughest fight you've had?
The scale.
Yeah. A lot of guys would say that, right?
Yeah. No. I don't know, man. I feel like, everybody's different. Everybody has their different styles. Everybody has their different strengths. I feel like one of the fights are kind of tough to me, but not really that tough, was the first half of when I fought Anthony Durrell, because he moved around a lot. He's very elusive. He's very fast. But I ended up catching him towards the later rounds. Porky Medina, when I fought him, he was just a freaking animal and a warrior that wouldn't give up. He was really strong too. Ronald Ellis, he was a relentless fighter too. He had that spirit and that will that he would never give up. So I mean, all these fights, they haven't been extremely hard, but they haven't been easy either. So I mean, so like I said, at the level, this level is a little bit different than when I was 4 years ago. Everybody's ready. Everybody's coming in very prepared. So I mean, I feel like the older and the more experience I get, the harder the fights are gonna get. So, but I mean, also too, that's the thing about it. The more experience you get, with the better fighters you fight. So I mean, I feel like everything gets harder, but I get better with time too.
You just mentioned the weight. You were joking, but you mentioned the weight. How much longer do you see yourself staying at 68?
I don't know, man. Probably about like 3 or 4 years. I feel like right now with the diet, it's pretty good. Making weight is never easy, but it's not extremely hard either. I just gotta always gotta be dedicated to the diet, and just make sure I follow the schedule. It just really depends, bro. I don't know. I feel comfortable making weight right now. Everything feels good, so we just gotta wait and see. But I think another 3 or 4 years.
Good deal. Last question. You were pretty adamant about stopping Jose Uzcategui. You're facing a mover, a guy that's going to move more than Uzcategui anyway, and Kyrone Davis now. Is the plan still to get the stoppage?
Yeah, it's definitely still to get the stoppage. That's the way my last fight was with Ronald Ellis, and I feel like Ronald Ellis is a good fighter, better fighter than Kyrone Davis. The thing I did with Ronald Ellis is I didn't go to the body that much in the beginning rounds, so I feel like this is something I have to work on right away with Kyrone Davis. You're basically taking the air out the tires when you go down to the body. So, I mean, we're definitely going to go down to the body more in the beginning of the fight, and the plan is still the same, knockout. That's what I want to get, and I want to keep my KO ratio high and get the fans what they want to see.
Like it.
David, obviously this is a big week for you. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys as well.
The unbeaten David Benavidez.
Oh, Benavidez! People didn't believe in what I could do. I'm the youngest two-time world champion in super middleweight history.
I'm taking over now. I'm running the show now. But now I came to change the game, and I'll show you how.
People want to see great fights and fireworks, and that's what I give.
I'm taking over now.
All right, it's time for Mike and I to go toe to toe. Now, this week, in light of what we saw on Saturday night, Canelo Álvarez stopping Caleb Plant to become the undisputed super middleweight champ, we're going to list our 5 fighters we'd like to see Canelo face next. And believe me, there are way more than 5 fighters who would love to face Canelo next and get the payday. They want payday, but more than that, they also want the legacy. They want the accomplishment, being able to beat the man who is considered the best in the sport today. So we're, of course, going to go in ascending order. Mike, kick things off with your number 5.
First, if you'll allow me to preface this, I actually did a piece on Boxing Junkie. I think the headline was something like 5 guys who could actually beat Canelo Álvarez. I wasn't predicting that they would beat Canelo Álvarez, but I would say that they were a threat to Canelo Álvarez. And nothing has changed for me since I did that. These are the 5 guys. So number 5 for me is Demetrius Andrade. We really don't know how good Andrade is because he's fought no one at the highest level of sport. The only possible exception being Vanes Martirosyan, who I had a lot of respect for, and that was a split decision. That was a close fight. Andrade passes the eye test, though. He obviously has talent. He's super quick, super athletic, super awkward, and he's a southpaw to boot. My gut tells me that he'd be a difficult opponent for pretty much anyone, and that could include Álvarez. I would definitely pick Álvarez to win the fight, in part because Andrade would have to move up from 160 to face him. But I would give Andrade a chance in that fight. It would be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, I like that fight as well. I do think that Canelo ultimately is too big, too strong, too smart. I think that Andrade's a good fighter. I do think that he tends to lose focus in the ring, and that may be due to the quality of opposition that he's facing, where he can afford to do that, but he certainly can't afford to do that against someone like Canelo Álvarez. We saw him hurt in his last fight, and I think Canelo would do way more than that, but still an intriguing fight. It's unfortunate it hasn't happened yet, but there's an opportunity for it to happen in the future. Andrade was going to be my number 5, but after what I saw Anthony Dirrell do last week, I'd like to see what happens when a Sugar Hill trained super middleweight steps into a right hand against Canelo Álvarez. And so my number 5 is Anthony Dirrell. I think Dirrell showed that he has plenty left. That right hand was landing against Kyrone Davis, too, and he throws a really, really good one. He's such a good counterpuncher, such a smart fighter in there. And we saw what he could do on Saturday night. And, Anthony Dirrell's overcome so much. He's done a lot of good things in boxing. I wouldn't mind seeing him get that opportunity. But if he doesn't, I sure hope that he doesn't decide to retire either.
I think that's a good choice, actually. I think people might forget how good on Anthony Durrell is and how much he's accomplished. He sort of showed us, that was quick, but he sort of showed us on Saturday night. And remember, we were talking to David Benavidez, and he said that one of the things that stood out early in his fight with Durrell was how fast Durrell is. So people might forget that too. He's really quick and really athletic guy.
Yeah, really, really quick with those counters. I like it. Now, let's go to number 4. I will kick things off first. And my number 4 is none other than Dimitri Bivol. Now, obviously, naturally, people say, oh, well, that fight should take place at light heavyweight. However, I'm of the opinion that it could also take place at super middleweight, even though Bivol holds a title at light heavyweight. Either way, it's a good fight, the boxer against the boxer. Puncher, and I think that Bivol brings a lot of things to the table that could offset potentially what Canelo does, but I'd like to see how Bivol handles that pressure as well.
That's an interesting idea. I guess I've read that too, that he might go down to face Canelo. I mean, it's a big enough fight where he'd be willing to do that. I'd hate to see him go down to 68, though. If anything, I would hope that they'd find a catch weight. Otherwise, I think it could hurt Bivol too much. So a part of me would really like to see Alvarez face one of the top light heavyweights, because I would just like to see if he could overcome the size disadvantage, as he did when he stopped Sergey Kovalev. The difference is that Bivol and Artur Beterbiev aren't as shop-worn as Kovalev was when Alvarez fought him. But I decided not to put the light heavyweights at the top of this list because I don't think Alvarez is going to move up in weight now. So I wanted to be more realistic. Right now, Bivol's combination of ability, he's one of those former Russian amateur stars, and his size might be too difficult for Alvarez to overcome. Bivol beat in succession Sullivan Barrera, Isaac Chilemba, Jean Pascal, and Joe Smith. That's a pretty good run right there. He's a good fighter, Bivol. I think he'd give Alvarez problems.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Now, I see your number 4, or
that was my number 4.
Okay, all right, I like it. Let's head on to number 3. I just want to piggyback on what you said, because my number 3 is a light heavyweight. Actually, it's the winner of Artur Beterbiev versus Marcus Brown. Beterbiev, the unified champion at 175, taking on Marcus Brown this December. And I'd love to see Canelo fight the winner of this. I don't, next, maybe not so much in this list of 5. You rank them where you rank them, and that's where they fall. But I think that it's a pretty good matchup. No question, whoever wins that, I think, deserves to be called the man in the division with respect to Dimitri Bivol, just because Beterbiev is considered the man. I think Marcus Brown is an extremely live dog in that fight, and Beterbiev brings a lot of great things to the table that I'd love to see him use against Canelo Alvarez.
So we talked very briefly about this toe-to-toe before we actually got on the podcast, so I didn't know what your order is, but I have a feeling we're going to end up with the same order down the stretch, because my number 3 also is, the winner of the Artur Beterbiev.
Marcus Brown.
Marcus Brown. Little brain freeze right there. Anyway, for the purposes of this exercise, Beterbiev's a big favorite. I'm just going to assume he's going to win that fight, although I do also have respect for Marcus Brown. But I wanted to talk about Beterbiev. I just love that matchup. Beterbiev knows how to box. He's a 2-time Olympian for Russia. But it's his power that really stands out. 16 fights, 16 knockouts. And he's faced some good opponents. The one, obviously, that stands out is Alexander Vazdik. That was a big defining win for Beterbiev. I think he has the boxing ability to compete with Alvarez, and I'm dying to see whether Alvarez could stand up to that kind of power. I don't really get butterflies for big fights anymore, but I think I would for that one.
Yeah, I like that fight too, although I think that Canelo's power is certainly a factor in that one as well.
Always going to be a factor.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. All right, let's keep this thing rolling.
Okay, so my number 2 is, I'm guessing, is probably your number 2, is Jermall Charlo. Charlo's principal disadvantage, obviously, would be size. He'd have to move up from 160 to challenge Alvarez. That said, I think Charlo has the all-around ability to give Alvarez problems. I don't know whether he's quite as quick and athletic as Plant, but he's not far behind in those departments if he's not as quick and athletic. And I think he's more offensive minded than Plant, and I think he definitely has more power than Plant. In other words, I think Alvarez would feel his punches. I would pick Alvarez to win in good part because of the size factor, but I think Charlo would be a live underdog in that fight. I just think he's got the all-around ability to give Alvarez problems.
Yeah, Jermall Charlo is my number 2 as well. And, you kind of mentioned the size difference. The reason why he's my number 2 and not my number 1 is because, one, he's a 2-division champion. He's the current undefeated WBC middleweight champion. And I wouldn't want him to have to jump into a fight at 168 directly against the pound-for-pound king in Canelo Álvarez. I think that he should probably get a fight or two underneath his belt. Before taking on, at 168, before taking on Canelo Álvarez. But truly, in my opinion, Jermall Charlo's resume is underrated. It's something we discussed last week. He beat a slew of good guys at 154 and even at 160, names like Deverenchenko, obviously. Dennis Hogan overlooked, but he arguably beat Jaime Munguia, Korobov and Brandon Adams. And heck, I think Juan Macias Montiel is going to give a lot of guys problems in the future. This is a really, really good fighter. Not only does he bring power to the table, but he's got a great jab, which can offset a lot of things that Canelo can do. And he's got a great chin. Now, I'm not suggesting he take too many of Canelo's punches. I don't think anyone should do that. But he will be able, or he should be able to handle the one or two that slip through to the head. I think one thing that Stephen Breadman Edwards mentioned in his mailbag a few weeks ago was that, one of Jermall Charlo's most underrated assets is his chin. And I think that's a big factor against someone like Canelo Álvarez, because Jermall Charlo is a type, he's fast, he's powerful, and he takes a good shot. So he's not afraid to stand in there and deliver in the heat of the moment, and things can get very, very interesting against Canelo Álvarez. Let's move on to number 1. I assume we have the same guy for number 1, and that is none other than the person we've been talking about throughout this entire podcast, David Benavidez. The size, the skill, the power, the tenacity, the athleticism, the conditioning, the youthfulness, the hunger. You name it. David Benavidez has all the traits. Of course, I'd love to see how he looks against Kyrone Davis on Saturday night. I think that'll go. It kind of gives a barometer on how he'll deal with Canelo Álvarez. Not saying that Davis and Álvarez have the same style, but the guy's got to fight in front of him. So I don't want to look too far ahead. But certainly on the list of 5 fighters I'd like to see Canelo Álvarez face next, David Benavidez is number 1.
Yeah, he's my number 1 too. That's the fight. Again, I appreciate what Álvarez accomplished, becoming the undisputed super middleweight champion. Kudos to him. But he didn't face the toughest test at 168 in the process, in my opinion. I believe that's David Benavidez. He, like Charlo, Benavidez, like Charlo, might not be quite as quick as Plant, but he's plenty quick. He's a good boxer. He throws a lot of combinations, which not a lot of guys do these days, and he can punch like hell. Benavidez doesn't have the experience that Golovkin brought against Álvarez, but he has ability, and he might punch just as hard as Triple G, which could mean trouble for Canelo. This is a realistic possibility, and I believe it's the best possible opponent for Álvarez right now. I'm dying to see this fight.
Yeah, who isn't? I certainly am too, and I hope it happens. Hope it happens soon. Hope we see all these fights on that we listed on this. And with that, that's going to end this week's episode. We want to thank Mr. David Benavidez and Kyrone Davis for joining us. Don't miss their showdown, Benavidez versus Davis, Saturday night at Footprint Center in Phoenix, Arizona, live on Showtime Championship Boxing at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to talk all about it next week and much more right here on the PBC podcast.